Hi, in this video I will show you how to create new AI in Dynamic Combat System. I'm using Unreal Engine 5.2 and this is merged pack of DCS, which means it has all the modules merged together. And I'll be working on Spider assets, which comes from free marketplace pack called Infinity Blade Adversaries. I'll leave you link in the description. I'll also leave you link to download this files so you can follow the tutorial. I've already created a few animation assets, so it has blend speed spider, which is used for movement. It has idle animations there and walking. There it has set up horizontal and vertical axis, and that's pretty much it. And to create Spider AI, we'll have to add a couple of files, such as character blueprint, animation blueprint, data tables storing animation montages, and behavior tree. Let's start with creating character blueprint, and this will be a blueprint from with parent class base AI. That's the one. And I'll call it BP Spider AI. And for now, let's leave it empty as it is. I'll get back to it later after setting up other files. Okay, so now let's create animation blueprint. And I will use this greater spider skeleton. And it's important to set parent class to anim instance base character. This way you will have access to all the variables which are calculated in this class, and you won't have to do any calculations in this animation blueprint. Okay, so here we can use this blend space, and let's also add default slot. In this default slot we will be playing all the animations such as attack, getting hit, and things like that. And for those inputs we can use variables direction and speed state. And as I mentioned before, these variables comes from this base class, so this is where all the calculations happens. You can check this blueprint to check how they calculate it. Of course, you can also make custom logic in here. And basically that's pretty much it that we will need for Spider AI to animate itself. Now let's create a data table that will store all the animation montages used by Spider, such as attacks, get hit, and any other things that you want AI to use. Okay, so let's create data table. It will be based on montage action struct. Okay, and let's add a couple of rows. The first one will be for a light attack. So if you type in action dot, then you will have all the tags used by montage actions. So in this case I will use light attack, heavy attack, and Spider will only use get hit front. But if you have other animations such as back, left, and right, then you can also add them and use them. Okay, so we have set up tags, but we don't have any montages. So now let's go to animations of Spider, and it has 3 animations for attacking. This one will be used as heavy attack, and those 2 animations will be used as light attacks. So let's create 3 anim montages. Okay, this one is heavy, so let's assign it to heavy attack. Okay, and now we also need to set up get hit animation. and for that I will use this reaction animation. So also let's create animation montage. Okay, and also if you download this those assets from the link I give you, those animations are already set up with root motion, and get hit animation has set up additive settings. It means it will be played on top of the other animations instead of completely overriding it. So for example, as you can see here, it's played on local space with idle animation as base pose, and it also has force root lock, so when it will be played, the character won't move back, but it will stay in place instead. And the attack animations also have enabled root motion, and that's pretty much it when it comes to animations. Okay, now let's create a behavior tree for our spider. And I want spider to basically just move towards its target and play attack animation. So it has pretty much identical behavior as summoned minion, which is used by Mage AI. So I'll just copy it and I'll show you how it will work. So first of all, it has this selector with updating AI behavior. It needs to have those keys set up properly, and what it does, it only updates behavior, state of the character, and also updates what is the current target, attacking target of this character. So next one is disabled state. So when spider will get stunned or stopped, his brain will be stopped in any way, then it enters this state and it basically does nothing, just waits. Okay, the next branch of this main selector is checking whether our target is set up. So for example, when it has a player selected as his attack target, it goes to this sequence, it moves towards him and plays light attack. So we may want to modify that a little. So I'll add selector. Okay, let's duplicate it and I'll call it heavy attack. Okay, let's also add a couple of decorators. I want to have a cooldown on heavy attacks so he can't spam it. Let's say he will only play it once 5 seconds, and let's also add a chance decorator with maybe 50%. Okay, and let's also increase the acceptance radius when moving to target, and I'll set it to 200. So basically spider will approach target and then he will choose to play either heavy or light attack. The next branch is patrolling. So when he doesn't have any attack target, he will just stay in place or move towards patrol points if he has any. And that's pretty much it. Okay, now let's go back to character blueprint and let's set it up. So if we enter class defaults, we can change his skeletal mesh to spider, animation blueprint to spider. Okay, we should also change his behavior tree asset to spider. And in montage manager, let's change data table to spider montages, And let's also override function get montages. And in here, let's also always use spider montages. Now we should actually let's go back to spider AI, because it seems like locomotion speed state is all by default set to 1, so I'll change it to 0. So he stays in place. Okay, and let's change capsule radius to 150 and 100. That should be okay. And you also need to move down the spider mesh a little, something like 120. You can drag and drop him into the level and see how it affects his height and modify it. Okay, now in begin play, let's also add activity. Is in combat to always have it enabled on spider. This activity is responsible for combat state, whether it means whether a weapon is equipped or unequipped, but in case of spider we can assume that his weapon is always equipped because he doesn't hide it or something like that. Okay, so now let's try to play and see if he is functional. So as you can see, he plays attack animations, he moves towards us, but he doesn't apply any damage, and also he doesn't rotate towards player while attacking. So that's something we will need to fix. Firstly, let's set up his collision detection. So for that I will open spider skeleton, and you can notice that I have added a couple of sockets to his left and right hand, and also one to his head. Okay, so let's set up animations, and in here we need to add animation notify state hitbox for duration of the attack, and we also need to specify collision part. It will be used to define which collision sockets should be activated, which should be used. So in this case he's swinging his left hand, so let's use collision part left hand. Okay, I will copy it and use it in right hand attack. So similarly, let's add it, and in this case it will be right hand. Okay, and the third attack is using both hands. But in this case we don't have such tag. We only have left and or right hand. So let's add such tag, and these tags are stored in DCS tags base. So we simply need to add, we can duplicate this tag actually, and let's simply call it both hands. Okay, let's save it, and now you should be able to select this tag. Now when we have set up attack animations, we need to specify which sockets to use based on what animation is played, and this is what we can do in Spider AI Blueprint. And for that we need to override event on collision activated. And this event gives us collision part tag. So let's make a switch. And let's use the three tags that we have used in our animations. So it will be left hand, right hand and both hands. Okay, in the case of left, I've selected left foot, so let's change it to left hand. And in this case, this is the animation that we played. So I want to use this 3 sockets, but I also want to use face socket. And the naming of sockets will be important here. So let's set it up with my collision handler and mesh. So we can use helper function there, which is convert primitive component to colliding component. And it allows us to select only socket names that includes the name that we provided here. So for example, if I want to use these 3 sockets, I'll give a name left hand, and this way all these sockets sockets will match and they will be used. But I also want to use face socket, so let's duplicate it, and for face socket I will use face collision. So let's set it like that, and this my collision handler has a function to set colliding components. Okay, that's the function, and let's use both of those components. And this is set up for left hand. For right hand will be pretty much the same. Just instead of left hand, want to use right hand. And in case of both hands, I want to use all the sockets. I want to use these 3 sockets, and also face collision. And all those sockets have call in name, so I'll use it. I'll select call, and this way it will use all the sockets. Actually, it also has function to set single collision mesh, so let's use it. Okay, now let's modify collision handler component a bit. So let's enable debug so we can see how it looks, and let's also increase trace radius to maybe something like 20. Okay, and if we play the game, you can see that Spider already has collision, and he can deal damage to a player. If we move away, he should approach us and then attack. But there is a still problem with rotation. So for example, when I move behind him, he doesn't rotate while attacking. So let's fix it. And to do so, we need to modify attack animations with another animation notifier state. And in this case, it will be rotate owner. So let's say after he starts and until the moment of attack, you can of course modify it as you wish, but I'll set up duration of this state like that, and I'll also modify max degrees per second, so basically that's rotation rate to 240, and I'll use it on other animations as well. Okay, and now when we play the game, and when I approach Spider, You can see that he rotates while attacking, so it's much harder to dodge it. You could also modify a couple of settings of Spider, for example his damage, because by default it's pretty low. So let's increase it to 20. You could also modify his team relations. By default he's only hostile to players, but you could make it also hostile to bandits or stuff like that, so they attack each other. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You can play around with modify him as you wish. So that's it. Thanks for watching.